I'm Ross Miller. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a yoga teacher. I'm an architect. I'm a friend. I'm a mentor. And I am mentored. And I'm committed to my community.
Ross, thank you so much for agreeing to sit down with me for this conversation today. I really appreciate it, and I value your time. I want to start off our conversation by asking, what do you think people's first impression of you is?
Wow. My wife says I laugh a lot, and sometimes that nervous laughter, that people don't take me seriously. But I don't know if that's kind of like my first impression, or what I think my first impression. I'd hope to think that my first impression is something of kindness, of kind of a warmth and comfort, safety. That's kind of what I really, I think, strive for, where I'm at my age right now. I don't know if that was the case, a long time ago. I think a long time ago it was like, who am I going to become? What I was taught was, work towards what you think you want, get it, that's who you are. And, as we get older, we discover it's nothing about who we are.
No, what we think we want or what we're doing is not who we're being.
No. It takes a while to figure that out.
Right? Totally.
Yeah,
Some roads are longer than others.
Exactly.
So you and I met because I took one of your yoga classes.
Uh-huh.
And I agree with everything that you said in your introduction. You are definitely a mentor. I know I leave your classes feeling refreshed and empowered, enlightened. And you talk about being a mentor. And I definitely feel in your classes you exude this openness and this mentorship. How did you get to that space? Because you also mentioned being mentored. So how did you come to that?
So truly, it's interesting because you know that I'm sober. It really didn't come to that kind of point until I got sober, until as we all come to the circumstances in our lives, decisions to make and what road to take. And I said I was a husband first, and when I got sober, I had a choice, and I wasn't the nice, kind person that you see here. I am a nice, kind person. The depths of my wife and I's drug addictions brought us to a point after a 20-year loving marriage that we just, being in the same room, we'd had it with each other. And she had gotten sober, and when she came home from treatment, she's like, you either have to get sober this time or we have to kind of split up and kind of find out. And it was interesting because, and I think I got that idea of kindness, or that ability to be kind that day from her, because it wasn't an ultimatum. It was kind of like we're talking now. She had tried to get sober. She had gotten sober 3 years before, but I didn't. And we both got back rolling again. And when that day that she came home, she goes, we tried this before. She goes, I don't want to live without you, but I won't survive if you don't change. And my first inclination wasn't, oh, thank you. I was like, well, I guess I got to leave. And I literally walked out the door. And I walked down the street. I share about this a lot because it becomes so clear in my mind. You always see in the movies or the comics or the kid running away from home, right? And he's got his 2 suitcases and he's like, I'm out of here. And I didn't have any suitcases. I just walked out and I walked down. I got like 4 houses away. And I had this moment where I realized that I was going to be alone. That I was willing to give up a 20-year marriage. My daughter was 19 at the time. And I was really willing to give all that up for, not just to get loaded, but to kind of get my way. To do what I wanted to do, and that what was so important to me, and we've talked about that what's up here is way more important than what's out there. And so I turned around, I'm like, okay, you're an idiot. In that moment, I turned around, I went back, I didn't open the door, I knocked on the door. And I said, and she opened it, and I go, I think I'm gonna try this. And that was the kind of what kick-started it all. And what I jumped in to recovery. And there was just a lot of, I was crazy, but there was a lot of love that kept being shown to me. And when we talk about mentorship, in my world, it's having a sponsor. And I found a guy that, and I was still nuts. I got loaded from when I was 11 years old till I was 40. I burned my life down to the ground when I was 17 in Oklahoma, and then I left home at 18 and a half by myself in a truck and came out here and got a job. And I started my life from scratch again. And within 6 months, I was back into the same routine that I was in. I was in the desert, ended up with one of the biggest crystal meth dealers in the Coachella Valley, and I was a speed freak. I was a speed freak for 20 years. And went to college, got married, did all this stuff. What brings me back to that thing of, I was taught that you work hard, play hard, achieve. I went back to school. We had a wonderful marriage, but it was always, my wife liked to drink and use the way I did. And she was kind of like the woman of my dreams. I didn't ever have to explain what we were doing because she was doing it with me. But that mentorship really came. I started to understand that first sponsor. He only had a year sober when he was my sponsor. And I probably had 3 months sober, and he went out and started getting loaded again. And I got to see the power of drug addiction and alcoholism kind of outside myself, because the one guy that I felt comfortable with, I watched what happened. And I watched for the next 90 days of him going through this cycle of only getting a week, getting 2 weeks, and then a few months later, I got a call, and he had nodded off on his motorcycle on the 101 and off the Tampa exit, and he died.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was this kind of, it was a very surreal moment, but it really hit home with me, the power of, not only the power of, addiction, but the power of human connection. Because I never tried to get sober before. I didn't know what it meant to get sober. And so when somebody reached out to me and we hit that connection, kind of like we do in yoga, a lot of it's about how we see each other and how open we can be. And sharing the pain, sharing the joy, sharing a solution, and not just kind of, and I've mentioned that to you, it's like, what are you doing about how you feel? Because one of the things I heard a long time ago is thinking brings on more thinking.
Totally.
And I've been thinking way too much. And and action will bring about a change in your life. So I started, jumping into this idea of service. And I got a sponsor, and he's been my sponsor for the past, almost 13 years now. My sober date's in April, so I just turned 13. So right after Cliff died, Jeffrey became my sponsor. And he taught me a lot about just being a kind, loving person, you know. That's what it's really all about. And the more you do that and let go of these ideas of what you think will solve everything in your life, the job. The interesting thing was that right before I got sober, I just had in 2007, I'd started my own business in 2006. And in 2007, I had, I think I had about like 15 jobs on the board, house, you know, not a mansion, but a house in the hills, beautiful wife, beautiful daughter. And I remember sitting out on the balcony. And it was one of those times when it's like, is this it? Is this everything that I worked for? And because it was about all these outside things. I had everything that I was told when I was a kid that you do to achieve so what am I supposed to do? Like, do this till I retire? And then what? I have no idea. I can't fathom what retirement means. Doesn't kind of make sense. It seems like you live your life daily until, you know, so what are the joys that come into that? What makes you want to be present? What makes you want to show up at the work? It's a lot about what this last year has been. You know, we all got shut down and so what are you gonna do?
That human connection that you talked about,
yeah.
Figuring out what that meant and feeling that by the quote unquote sobering experience of losing someone that you finally opened up to. And everything you just said about sitting out on your balcony and looking out into the so what almost, right? And into the what next?
Yeah.
Is there a next? And even though you were married, you had a daughter, I'm sure you love her.
Oh, I had and it's even from being sober, the relationship that we've evolved into, and I know my wife will 100%, we talk about it every day, about how amazing the connection and the growth of the relationship is. I really didn't know how to be honest. And not in just like this bad kind of lying or, it was the honesty of connection.
Being present.
Well, you've heard me share that, you know, even like sitting here, I'm comparing my insides to your outsides, and I'm losing every time. It's that perception of what I see somebody else, what they have, or what maybe what I perceive that they're going through. You know, and my problem is I shift it and I turn it and I make it about me. And then all bets are off. Because then I'm in the equation when I can step out and be kind of the observer and not bring what I feel. Then there's some serious connection that can happen. Because then I can see if somebody's in fear, or, you know, most of anything confrontation that comes to me or my confrontation towards anybody else is that there's fear in the equation.
Yes, and fear drives so much and keeps us from so many things. And you create, like you said, it's what you bring into the equation and into that meeting with someone or that conversation where you have this preconceived notion of who they are. So this interaction is going to go this way. But it's only going to go that way because your actions, based on what you've decided about that person.
Here we go.
Exactly. And then at the end, it's almost like you did it so that you could say, told ya.
There we go. I was right. I feel better now.
Right. Even though you don't feel good because you didn't like the interaction, but at least you told yourself and you knew it was going to be that way, right? Yep. I hear you.
There's comfort in keeping score.
Right. And the sad part is we're only in competition with ourselves.
Yeah.
which is so unnecessary.
I think that's one of the best gifts that I've gotten, is the ability to recognize that idea of keeping score, that idea of, sometimes the most spiritual thing that I can do is listen. About, like almost 8 years ago, when I fell into the yoga, was the ability to let go and the ability for everything to just kind of stop. And when I got that taste of the mind being able to stop, and all of a sudden the mind connects to the heart through breath, that ease that presides can just carry you into a whole new aspect of living, which I love.
Oh, it's incredible.
Yeah.
And yoga's been tremendous for me too, in that way of decluttering the mind,
Yeah.
and connecting, like you said, with your heart. But it also allows you to go back and do exactly what you just said in relation to your conversation with your wife, is be open to listening.
Yeah.
You shared so many things, and I still have a couple of questions. But
Yeah.
what is something that would surprise people to know about you?
If you would have asked me that 15 years ago, I probably could have come up with about 4 or 5 different things. My life is so transparent right now. Here's something that people don't, when I tell them, they're like, are you kidding me? When we got sober, it was 2008, and the economy was completely bad. We had gone through all of our life savings, and work, it was just horrible. So we started renting out rooms so that we could keep the house, make payments and stuff like that. And but they had to be sober, and it was like, if you're gonna come stay, if you want a room, you gotta follow our rules. This is what we're doing, and you don't wanna be here, fine. But then, like, the recovery centers around the area started seeing people that were staying with us getting better, because we treat them like a family. And then they started sending people to us, and they were calling, they're like, hey, I got somebody coming out here, can you put them up? And we're all like, okay. So long story short, that what we were doing there became the Fellowship House, and it's a nonprofit that helps people get, when they get out of treatment, reestablish their lives. I live, for the past 13 years, I've lived with a range from 10 to 18 people. I've been in sober living for 13 years. My family went from 3, my wife, my daughter, and I, to we take care of as much, and my family dinner every night at 5 o'clock. There are seats for at least 20 to 25 people. So maybe that's surprising.
That would be surprising.
But it's second nature. That's what we learned. That's what I learned. One of the biggest cravings in that connection for me is kind of breaking bread. There's a lot done through this conversation, right? There's a lot of openness to sitting around the table and breaking bread and talking and putting the phones down and saying, how was your day? Even if I know the 6 people at the table with me, I know what they've been doing all day. They've been going to meetings, they've been going to the gym, they've been going to yoga, they're looking for jobs, we're into life, but we treat it as a family unit. So I call it kind of the dysfunctional Brady Bunch. We have, we've had over probably 600 people through our house, easily 600. I think in 2015 we were doing something for a grant, and we pulled all this paperwork, and there'd been over 500 people through our house.
Wow.
And I've just watched people celebrate 10, 11, 12 years of sobriety from the early days, and it's like,
what a journey, literally, from the East Coast to the West Coast,
Yeah.
and then within yourself, to 4 houses down, be able to recognize what really truly had value for you, and you were able to put yourself first and put the drugs down. And I think that is a monumental, no pun intended, pivotal moment on the sidewalk where you're able to make that conscious choice. And what a gift that choice has been, not only to yourself, to your wife, to your daughter, to all of us who interact with you at the studio, but to all the people that you've helped along the way, that you've mentored, that you've spoken to, that you've taught to and shared with. I know that I live every week for Friday morning right now.
I do too, actually. It's what, you know, it's crazy.
Yeah, it is an important part of my week to connect with you, to connect, like you said, with the other people in the room, and to, if you've said it to me once, you've said it 1,000 times as you walk by me, as you're teaching. Open your heart less, let it out, and let it go.
Yeah.
And I live every Friday to let it go. And I love it.
And then we restart.
Exactly. But it's so, what you have is such a gift. And you've chosen to use it. And I think that's commendable.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I cannot thank you enough for sharing your time with me today.
Of course.
I have one last question for you.
Okie doke. As
we are in yoga class, as you are out in the community on your next endeavor,
yeah, there's a lot of them.
As you are at home with your family and your chosen family, if you could hold up a sign, this is one thing about you, what do you want people to know about Ross?
First word that came to mind was safe.